We have the latest Dallas Stars updates from morning skate, including no Roope Hintz tonight against the Canadiens. Also, should the Dallas Stars be interested in a John Klingberg reunion? We'll discuss that and plenty more on today's episode of Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. No Roope Hintz or Jake Oettinger at morning skate, but do not worry. Jake Oettinger is fine and will get the start tonight against the Montreal Canadiens. We'll preview tonight's tilt. We'll play Shooting Star. And I also want to get into a potential John Klingberg reunion since that's been thrown out there recently. All on a jam-packed Thursday edition of Locked On Stars that is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I apologize if I look and sound horrible. I feel a bit congested, but either way, we are powering through on today's episode. So, updates from morning skate, no Roope Hintz or Jake Oettinger. Jake Oettinger was not expected, but Pete DeBoer did give us an update. He is fine, and he will be the starter tonight against Montreal. Roope Hintz wasn't a huge surprise. He left early in the first period against Toronto a few days ago. He was listed as questionable to return with an upper body injury. Pete DeBoer did give us a designation. He is day-to-day for the time being. So Roope Hintz is out tonight against the Canadiens, and we discussed the potential of him being out long-term on yesterday's episode of Locked On Stars. You can definitely go back and check that one out, as I discussed Maverick Bourque really having to step up as the number 2 center for the Dallas Stars. But I'll give you some of the morning skate lines ahead of tonight's game against the Canadiens. And I did throw this trio out there at the beginning of the conversation. Wyatt Johnston, Jason Robertson, and Wyatt Dadonov. So moving Wyatt back to center and putting him up with Robertson and Dadonov so you don't feel like you're dropping or losing too much offensive potential with that trio, because Robertson without Roope Hintz has had some struggles. We all know what Johnston can be, and Johnston right now is playing some of his best hockey. If I recall, I believe the Stars had Johnston, Robertson, and Dadonov before, even when Roope Hintz was in the lineup. I could be wrong about that. Maybe they were always together now that I think about it, because I don't think Roope or Robo have ever been separated. We have seen Johnston on that top line, just hasn't had the spark or domination that we saw last season in a small sample size. The other lines go as such. Matt Duchene centers between Ben and Stankoven. Maverick Bourque stays on that third line, centering Matej Blumel and Sam Steele. And then your fourth line is Oscar Beck, Colin Blackwell, and Justin Ritzkovian, who was recalled from Texas this morning, along with Blumel. So Ritzkovian and Blumel will both check in to tonight's game against the Habs. And I do like these trios for the first game without Roope Hintz, because it doesn't put a ton of pressure on Maverick Bourque to have to pick up more load than he is capable of in his rookie season. He's starting to play some of his best hockey right now. There's no reason to throw him up into a role that he is not ready to assume right now. Allow Wyatt Johnston to center that top line, leave Dutchy where he is, and you do have to break up Duchene and Johnston and Ben, unfortunately. But having Stankoven on that flank, which is a trio we have seen before this season, with all of them humming the way they are recently, you feel like you're not going to miss too much of that offensive threat, even with Wyatt Johnston being moved onto the top line. However, with no Roope Hintz, Sagan, Marchment, right, that's 60 to 80 goals you're trying to replace. And albeit you don't expect them to be out the entire season, but you're trying to win some games right now and stay in the hunt in the Central Division. You're just a point behind Minnesota, in the Central. So these games are big in terms of the Stars' playoff position and just their overall confidence, because they have been rolling here recently. Just won 4 out of 5 on their road trip, and they're starting to play some of their best hockey of the season, and more importantly, the most consistent hockey we have seen from the Stars here over the last few weeks. Heiskanen, Lyubushkin, Lindell, Lundqvist, Harley, Dumba are your pairings, which is no surprise. Casey DeSmith will be your backup tonight, as Jake Ottinger will get the start. I do like to see Johnson on that top line, get him back to being a center. I think that's where he can be his best. Of course, he takes a lot of draws, whether he's on the wing or not, but I think he can be really impactful as a center iceman, and really is your future number one center iceman if Roope Hintz is out, or in the near future when Roope Hintz inevitably declines at some point. He's obviously having a incredible goal-scoring season, and the Stars will certainly miss that scoring touch since Roope has 19 goals this season, which leads the Dallas Stars. So it could be a bit of a slog tonight with the new trios and trying to get some new faces into the lineup and get them acclimated quickly. Dallas could struggle to find their footing in tonight's game. So we may have to give them a period and a half to find their groove. But Dallas does have some of their personnel playing their best hockey of the year. Maverick Bourque. I would throw Sam Steele in that conversation, who's been a dog recently. Stankoven, who scored twice against Toronto. Maybe that unlocks him. You have Ben and Duchesne that continue to be as productive as ever here for Dallas. So there are some guys that can lean on, and they will need to lean on heavily without Roope Hintz tonight, and possibly in the near future, as he was designated as day-to-day by Pete DeBoer. But certainly another injury to throw in to the Stars lineup if they haven't dealt with enough already with the loss of Marchment and Sagan. So that's the National Hockey League, though, at this point in the season. The Stars went through some of this last season, not to a huge degree, but they lost Miro early in January for a month, and I want to say they were losing Sagan to a game here or there, and then Hakanpää. So this is just the dog days of the schedule, right? Where you're going to be dealing with some injuries and some guys missing some time, and you got to find a way to pick up some points either way. Let's segue into the John Klingberg reunion, since that's been thrown out there a bit. I'll keep it short and sweet. I don't see the admiration for this at all. I really don't. I have no desire to add John Klingberg to this roster. Maybe that's just me. I see some Stars fans out there that are really gung-ho on possibly going out to acquire him. It's been thrown out there that Dallas is interested. I believe that to some degree. I'll say John Klingberg's agent should, of course, call Dallas. I'm sure Jim Nill would pick up the phone. How feasible is it? Well, not how feasible. I don't see the benefit of adding John Klingberg to this roster. And his age is not a huge issue. He's 32 years old, but he's declining. He's been declining as a defenseman over the last few seasons. He played in Toronto last year. I can't recall if he was a healthy scratch in the playoffs or if he had an injury. I'm not entirely sure, but he didn't play in the postseason. I didn't think he was particularly good against Dallas in the playoffs a few years ago. I don't see the positive out of adding John Klingberg to this roster. I just don't think he brings in anything that Dallas doesn't already have, because John Klingberg is not a spectacular defenseman. He really never has been in his career. But I will say, in his prime, I thought he was really underrated as a defender in his own zone, especially on breakouts. We know what he can do with the puck. Like, that's not an issue. I think he was actually a really strong defender there for a few years, but he wasn't Miro Heiskanen. He wasn't Thomas Harley, in my opinion. Does he give Dallas maybe an offensive boost? Yeah, but what really is his offensive ability besides a power play specialist at this point? Like, I'll take Harley and Miro as your offensive weapon over John Klingberg right now. That's where I stand on it. Should Dallas take the call? Why not? You can always have depth. I've always said that. You can always have a depth piece. I just don't know if this is the one that you want. And I think Liam Bichsel, if you're wanting to add some depth, is a much better alternative. A much better alternative. And Bichsel brings something else that you really need, and that's a physical edge. And that's somebody that's strong on the walls. That is more beneficial to Dallas right now, I believe, than John Klingberg. So I don't really get it. I really don't. But I'm sure a team will go out there and give him a chance, right? Toronto did last season. Supposedly they're in on it. I think Colorado's kind of been thrown out there. So yeah, that's kind of where I live on the John Klingberg, I guess, potential reunion. I'm not a huge fan of it, but you can let me know if you are, and I would love to hear your reasoning behind it. I'm sure there are some things I'm missing. I would love for you to let me know in the comments below if you are pretty bullish on a potential John Klingberg reunion. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's get into tonight's tilt against the Stars and Canadiens. But before we get to that, this just came out, and I have to get to this. The NHL Dallas Stars QuarterCentury Team. These have been coming out. It was just released. So let's get into that in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? It is easy, Stars fans. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates fast. And the best thing about it is we all know as business owners, you are extremely busy. You don't have time to be searching through thousands of candidates, and that's why Indeed will help you out. They only give you candidates that match your job requirements. Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. So you can spend and speed up that hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. I've been really looking forward to the QuarterCentury Team coming out for the Dallas Stars, and it just popped up moments ago on X. And there was a great question from Jacob T. Wallace who quoted it that said, who wins overtime 5v5? So let's get into it. Your QuarterCentury Dallas Stars first team. Your first team forwards include Jere Lehtinen, Mike Modano, and Jamie Benn. Not a huge surprise there with those three. On the back end, Miro Heiskanen and Sergei Zubov. Boy, what a pairing that would be. We could only dream. Right-handed shot Zubov and lefty Miro Heiskanen. What a dominant pairing those two would be. And then your first team goaltender, no surprise here, Marty Turco. So not much to be upset about there. I would be interested to see if you would throw anybody else into that conversation. Your quarter-century second team. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. So your second team forward, Joe Pavelski, is on here. So he'll be a first-team San Jose Shark, obviously. Second team forward for the Stars. Tyler Seguin is your second team forward, and Brendan Morrow, your second team forward as well. On the back end, you have John Klingberg and Esa Lindell. So you have a Swede and a Finn. And again, we can kind of bring this back to John Klingberg, had some of his best years in Dallas. So he should certainly, in my opinion, be on this list. Your second team goaltender, Ed Belfour, which, again, is no surprise. If Belfour played a few more years in Dallas, you could certainly make the case he could be your number one goaltender. But him and Turco were certainly to your top pieces. I have to say, I think Louis Erickson is the snub here. I would put Louis Erickson over Joe Pavelski, and I love Joe Pavelski, but he didn't play here enough to be in the quarter-century team, if you ask me. I'm happy that Brendan Morrow's in here. Obviously, such a huge impact, a captain for Dallas, and this isn't to disqualify any of the impacts that Joe Pavelski has had on Dallas, but I mean, I feel like Erickson should be on there. Had some fantastic years. Was a 30 goal scorer in 08-09 at 36. I mean, had 29 the following year. Was an all-star for a couple of those seasons. I think you can make the case to throw him in there. I mean, had 3 straight 70-point campaigns in Dallas. Ribeiro's an interesting one too. I think you could throw in there more as an honorable mention. I think I would give the edge to Louis Erickson over Joe Pavelski, in my opinion. But that's just sort of where I stand. Ribeiro had some big years too. You could certainly make the case. I don't have a ton of gripes with this. Joe Pavelski being on here was a bit shocking to me, but I think it's some really quality picks. Brett Hull too feels like he deserves to be on there. Again, he played on a lot of different teams, and had a short sort of stint, kind of like Joe Pavelski. But if you're going to go between Joe or Hull, you think you may go with Hull just because he won a cup, but I kind of see it. I do see it. I could certainly see you arguing for Hatcher to be on this list as well instead of Lindell, maybe. But yeah, I think it's a pretty decent list. Looking at some of the comments, Klingberg on this is definitely because they're trying to get him back in a trade. He's in conversation, but give me Hatcher or Sador over Klingberg. I can certainly see that. Some people snub Trevor Daley. I think that's a good one too. Trevor Daley, always liked his game. You think of guys like Robidas too. I really enjoyed Robidas when he was in Dallas. So, I mean, these are always good up for discussion and stuff. I don't have a ton of gripes about it, but I did want to share that since I was looking forward to seeing what the picks were for the Dallas Stars. So there you go. There is our NHL quarter-century team. I'll go ahead and repost those on X. Let's do a quick preview of tonight's game against the Canadiens and Stars. However, again, look for it to be a slow start for Dallas, coming off of a long road trip. That first period may be really sloppy, and the Stars are having to work in some new trios and some different guys with Blumel and Ritskovian tonight. Of course, Stars just met the Canadiens a week ago. They found a way to pull through with a 2-1 overtime win. So don't expect too much different from these Canadiens. Montembeault is the stud, who's had some extremely good games against the Stars, and he did just a few games ago. His last start, he did come away with a victory over Utah, stopped 22 of 25. But in that game against Dallas, he stopped 35 of 36. I would suspect they go back to Montembeault tonight against Dallas, a 2.88 goals against average and 900 save percentage. Their power plays, middle of the pack. Their PKs is top 10 at 82%. There wasn't a ton of special teams in that first game, if I recall. I guess there was a bit. There was a combined 4 power plays. The Canadians did have a power play goal from Patrick Laine, who seems to be only able to score on the power play, and he looked good against Dallas. Well, I guess that's not saying much. He's always looked good against Dallas in his career, but he was a real problem, I thought, for the Stars back at the Bell Center. So Dallas is going to have to slow down him and Suzuki, right? Those are the two you really have to keep your eye on. And last time they were in this building, I think Suzuki and them had a bit of a scoring parade. So Stars are going to have their hands full. I'm looking for a big game from Jake Ottinger. Dallas is not going to be running on all cylinders tonight. I feel like that's almost a guarantee. It'll be rather important that Jake Ottinger can hold them in, and hopefully they can find a rhythm, get better as the game goes on. And I'll say this, just to earn a point here, I think would be big tonight. I think it would be big if you can just get a point. Obviously, you want the win, but you may have to grind this one out. So look for a pretty physical, taxing game like we saw a week ago against the Canadians, and it may not be a big skating game. Stars may not be as crisp as you would like, but they're going to be sort of just fighting through it here this evening. But it is nice to be back home. 7 o'clock puck drop at the American Airlines Center. Canadians and Stars coming your way tonight. That was a jam-packed segment. That was good to get into the Dallas Stars QuarterCentury Team. Alrighty. Shooting star. Give me your picks. We'll do that on the other side. On today's episode of Locked On Stars, it is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets. You want to go to sports, music, theater, comedy, you name it, they have it. Some of your favorite memories are going to these types of events, and Gametime has Gametime Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I went to a concert over the summer. I hopped on Gametime. I went ahead, I went to the concert I wanted to attend, and boom, within about 5 minutes, I picked out the seats I wanted. I could see the view from my seat, so I didn't have to worry about being blocked out by anybody or a certain obstacle such as a beam, a piece of glass. We've all been there before, so you don't have to worry about that with Gametime. Takes out all the fluff. You get your deals, you get the fees up front, and then boom. They also give you 110% of the difference with the Gametime credit, the lowest price guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKED on NHL. That's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. So my shooting star pick will sort of coincide with how I feel this game will be played tonight against the Canadians. I'm going with Jake Ottinger for my shooting star pick. He will be the difference in the game for the Stars. How will Jake Ottinger perform tonight? So I'm going with old Jakey Otter against the Habs to get the job done. They'll need a stellar performance for him, especially if he goes up against Montembeault. So I'm going with Jake Ottinger as my shooting star. Let me know in the comments below. Also, be sure to vote on the YouTube community tab. Appreciate all your participation with that. You guys have been phenomenal, and I really appreciate you for participating on those as well. No Roope Hintz tonight against the Canadians. Justin Ritzkovi and Matej Blumel in the lineup. Jake Ottinger will get the start. And that'll do it for a Thursday edition of Locked On Stars. A jam-packed episode. We got into more than I even assumed coming in to today's show. As always, thank you so much for the love and support. Please be sure to subscribe. We're almost at 3,500 subscribers. You guys have been killing it recently. If you're not subscribed, please do join the bandwagon. We're about 120 subscribers away from hitting that milestone. I want to get there as quickly as possible. Be sure to leave a review if you listen on audio only on Spotify. You can leave a comment there as well. I love reading your comments, the conversation, and engaging with y'all in the comment section too. So thank you. As always a pleasure to be with you on Locked On Stars. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll break down tonight's game, so be on the lookout for that. Enjoy the Thursday. Hopefully the Stars will pick up a win tonight. Enjoy the contest. We'll be back to break it all down tomorrow and plenty more. As always, so long, Stars fans.